This is actually the area that's outside of the fence, and I just thought we'd chase the sunlight here, watch the sunset on the mountains behind me. Normally the mountains are obscured by leaves, and this is the time of year we get a little bit of perspective, and I thought that would be useful for this super quick, short overview of the astrology of 2022. Look for more complete videos on the astrology of 22 coming up, but as I looked through the transits, I wanted to come up with something that was pretty brief and just kind of gave you just an overview, a heads up for the entire year. All right. So we're going to start out by being aware that the nodes of the moon are changing signs. This usually happens about every 18 months, but it's been a while since the nodes were in Taurus and Scorpio, which is where they're moving into. Now, one thing to pay attention with the nodes is they move backwards. So they don't go to 0 degrees, they go to 29. They actually are mostly retrograde throughout the year. And the nodes of the moon aren't actual bodies in space. They're just points in space that relate to how they move across the face of the earth, right? If you think about the belt around the earth as a racetrack and the movement of the moon, this is what creates the north and south node. Now, when you have those nodes changing signs, there's going to be some disagreement between astrologers. You'll hear different dates, and that's because some people use what's called the true node and some people use what's called the mean node, meaning the average. True node is actually where the node is, and the mean node averages it out. I use the true node, so for me, this doesn't happen until January. I'm looking at January when the nodes change signs, but some people will be talking about it in December. Don't worry about it, okay? But just realize that they are going to be moving backwards through the Taurus and Scorpio area of your chart. So the north node through Taurus and the south node through Scorpio. So this is going to be a really big thing because these nodes of the moon are incredibly karmic. They can make things somewhat a little bit more difficult in both of those areas of life. So, some people kind of think of one as like really good and really bad, but the way I look at it is you really have to make sure you're doing the high vibrational north node things and be very cautious not to do the south node low vibrational things. And usually the answer, if you're having trouble with either one of them, is to flip it, right? If you're having trouble with the Scorpio, doing low vibe Scorpio things, go across the sky and make sure you're doing the high vibe Taurus things. If you're having trouble doing the low vibe Taurus things, whoop, go across the sky. Make sure you're doing the high vibe Scorpio things. Now, this is going to be amplified energy because Uranus, the sign that relates to synchronicity, the great awakener, the rebel, rules the internet, which is fascinating. This is also in Taurus, all right? And in fact, the North Node and Uranus are going to be coming together this year. So knowing those mid degrees of Taurus, where they are in your chart, is very important as you move through this year, because that Uranus energy is going to wake you up in some way in that area of your life. So it's important to pay attention to that. Now, as we move into January, another really interesting thing that's going to kind of be building through January into February is something that it's actually starting in December of 2021. And that is the meeting of Pluto and Venus in Capricorn. All right. So Pluto is death, destruction, rebirth, deep transformation. And Venus is love and beauty. And coming together with Venus retrograding back and forth and moving with Pluto, you're going to have a lot of insight and probably maybe some difficulty with financial things and things along those lines. Really pay attention to the symbols of what's happening in December, because this is going to help lead you into February when Pluto comes to 27 degrees of Capricorn, and also Venus and Mars come and join Pluto close to those degrees. Why are those degrees particularly important? Well, they're particularly important if you live in the United States or if you use the US dollar as your primary currency, because in the chart that is created for the United States when it was born, because anything that is created has a chart, right? And I use the Sibley chart. There's some conflict out there, but I use the Sibley chart for the United States. It shows that at 27 degrees. I don't remember the minutes. But when we get into the February 8th range, all through that beginning of the month, the United States is going to start to experience what we call the Pluto Return. It happens only once every about 248 years, but it typically brings big change, sudden, dramatic, radical change. And to have Mars and Venus also there in the sign of Capricorn, which relates to structures, which relates to governments, which relates to, you know, school systems and all of these kinds of things, right? The structures of our life. This is a big shakeup, and it's very important that you're paying attention to what happens, because this is not going to be a one and done. Okay, this is going to be a wave. Whatever's happening in December, it's going to kind of have a crescendo in February, maybe early March, and then it's going to ease off again. All right, but it'll be back, so pay attention. Now, the other really intense, interesting thing that's happening next year is that we're going to have Jupiter moving into Pisces. So Jupiter dipped into Pisces this past year over the summer. And it was interesting. When Jupiter dipped into Pisces, the pandemic kind of eased off. It was when we were lifting restrictions, people were kind of being a little more positive. And then all of a sudden when it went back into Aquarius, we ran into trouble again. Well, I believe it's December 29th that Jupiter goes to 0 degrees of Pisces. Okay, Jupiter likes to be in Pisces. This is nice. But an interesting thing is going to happen as you get into early April. Jupiter is going to fly through Pisces and meet up with Neptune in the sky. And I believe it's at 23 degrees of Pisces. So you bring Neptune, which is inspiration, but also delusion. It's the connection with the divine. It's also media and how things are not quite what they seem. In the watery depths of Pisces, where it's already, you know, just a little untethered. It's just water energy. You bring Jupiter in there and it's going to make it bigger, okay? So that's really important for you to pay attention to what's going on in that area of your chart as well. So the Pisces Virgo axis of your chart will be activated then. That also is, that one is kind of a one and done. Okay, you're going to have this like build up. There's going to be a lot going on in April. I would watch out for flooding. Historically, I believe the last time this happened was 1856, and there was epic flooding in Europe. Weather-related things in general, you're going to kind of look and be like, well, do I blame that on the Uranus and Taurus, you know, the restructuring of the Earth herself, or do I look at this, you know, Neptune and Jupiter coming together in Pisces? But watch out for flooding. Watch out for things being hidden, or, you know, bait and switch kind of things, confusion, delusion. You are absolutely going to want to pay attention also to what's going on again in the United States, because back when, in 1856, when the last time these two planets met in Pisces, it was the precursor to the Civil War in the United States. And I don't tell you that to scare you. It's a big country and a lot of things will happen, okay? And some of it might be regional, but there were many regional conflicts, particularly one called Bloody Kansas. And if you're unfamiliar with that, please look that up. Very sad chapter in the history of our country. So that kind of ushers us into the spring. Now, believe it or not, Jupiter's moving so quickly, it's actually going to make it into Aries later in the year. And then back up into Pisces. Now, it's not going to come back and meet up with Neptune again. So it's going to be a real crescendo, because it's not going to be a multi-layered hit. All right, so pay attention to that. All right, what else did I want to tell you about? Oh, I wanted to tell you about Chiron. That's another thing to pay attention to. So Chiron's been in Aries, but it's been moving back really over the same points for a while. Chiron is going to get to 16 degrees of Aries at this point. So that's kind of new territory. I'm looking at the first of the year. Let me look at the first of the year and see where it's at. In January, Chiron is at 8 degrees of Aries. All right, and moving direct, but it's going to go all the way to 16. So if you have points between 8 and 16 in Aries in your chart, you're going to want to really pay attention to this energy of the wounded healer, this energy of something that needs to be managed. There needs to be some type of healing, some type of help. There's some kind of service that you need to do, or you will need to accept help in that range of your chart. And don't just look at the Aries, right? Look across the sky to Libra. It could also be pinging on the Libra area of your chart too, because it's across the sky from it, right? It creates an opposition. Now it retrogrades July 19th, backs all the way up, or it retrogrades at the 16 degree mark, goes all the way to 11 into December, and then goes direct. But really pay attention to what's going on in that area of your chart. There might be some amplification when Jupiter gets on Chiron, and now we'll be talking about that as we get into 2023. So Saturn is also going to be active this year, and we've talked a lot about how 2021, one of the big themes was Saturn square Uranus. Okay, and if you didn't hear about that, that's fine, but basically it's the idea of Saturn, which is structure, in the sign of Aquarius, which it was the ancient ruler of Aquarius, so it likes to be in Aquarius. So Saturn in Aquarius, trying to set the rules, trying to tell people what to do, trying to be in charge of the people, in a difficult aspect to Uranus, that planet of rebellion and sudden events and the individual, right? So I'm sure you saw those themes of those kinds of butting of heads, clash of minds that was really the hallmark of 2021. Well, a lot of people think that's done from the retrogrades, but it does come back in September and October of 2022. And so some of those themes that you saw in 2021 that you really hopefully paid attention to, I'm going to be doing a video on journaling questions so that you can kind of dig into your own experience and kind of see how it impacted you individually and your community and your family and then the collective as well. But those lessons are going to kind of come back around. Now, it doesn't perfect. What does that mean? Each sign has 30 degrees. So, Taurus 1, Taurus 2, Taurus 3, Taurus 0, right? Sorry, 0, 1, it goes all the way up to 29 for each of them, right? But then each of those degrees has 60 minutes. And so, let's look at January 1st. For example, Saturn is at 12 degrees, 0 minutes. That's so interesting. Jupiter at 0 degrees, Pisces, 43 minutes. So when we talk about an aspect or a perfection of an aspect, like an interaction between the planets, we are talking about when they meet at the precise degree, right? And then the precise minute. Well, Saturn and Uranus are going to do this dance again, and they're going to be doing it at, I believe, let's look ahead, friends, and see what degree that's going to be at. Yeah, it's going to be at 18. September, October. Yeah, it's going to be at 18. So with that 18 degree of Aquarius, 18 degree of Taurus, you're going to be having that square again. And astrologers typically look at squares or trines or any aspect as being, you start really looking at it within 3 degrees. Now, when it's something like this that moves so slow, I usually only look at the orb of just like 1 degree, because sometimes then the energy is not clear enough for you to really identify what's happening. But themes that repeated throughout 2021 are once again going to be coming up in the fall of 2022. All right. So those are the main things. Now, of course, there'll be, retrogrades, and there'll be, Mars square whatever, and Mercury conjunct whatever, and we'll talk more about those when we get into the monthlies. But this is the overview that I really wanted you to kind of try to understand and wrap your brain around. Not because I want you to be afraid again, but I want you to be ready. There's going to be tremendous change. There's going to be upheaval as Pluto pushes towards the end of Capricorn, right? Think of what has changed since 2008. Think about that. And think about the push to culmination. Think also of that Saturn square Uranus vibe. When things break down, it takes a while to clear the rubble, to rebuild. And that's what we're looking at right now. We're trying to decide individually, as a culture and community and in the world, how do we take these things that aren't working and rebuild them so that they do? And to the extent that we are lazy and we just try to make things work that aren't working, to the extent we're in denial, to the extent we play by the rule book that no longer exists, the more harmful, more difficult, and the longer it will take for things to be better, to things to get right. All right? So we have to play our individual parts in manifesting the best possible outcomes of these energies. We have to be aware of our personal triggers. We have to be aware of where we need to loosen up and let go. We need to be aware how to live more lightly on this earth. And we're going to be really figuring out what are our internal resources and external resources and how we can use those to our own best and for the best of the whole world. All right. Well, thank you so much if you watched all the way to the end. I appreciate your patience so much. If you found this useful, please share. I'm trying to grow the channel, so if you can share this with your friends or family, I would really deeply appreciate it. If you have some questions or specific things that you would like addressed in my 2022 video, please drop it down below. Let me know if you kind of want a list of specific things that are happening, or you know, an overview for each month, or what the best way to serve you and help you to negotiate this new year would be. All right, catch you next time. Bye.